program will begin shortly. Launch sequence. Activate. Warning, the following content is not politically correct. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back to the channel today, everyone. So sorry, last week for the unexpected absence. So my dog went missing on Monday, and so my week was pretty bad. And so we got her back on Friday, thankfully. And I do just want to put a little service announcement out there. Verify with your information with your chip company if you have one. My dog was very well taken care of, but the chip company gave the people that found her all the wrong information. So like wrong email, wrong phone number, wrong name, like everything was just wrong. And so it was a long week, to say the least. But today we have a very amazing guest. She was probably one of my first Twitter followers, or somebody that I followed on Twitter. We've known each other for quite a while, and this will be the second time she's been on the channel, but it's been about 2 years. So welcome, Josie, aka the Red Headed Libertarian. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Sarah?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I had to look it up. I was like, when did I have Josie on last? And it was June of 2021.
It was after.
Yeah, so everything has been growing since then. Your channel, my channel, platforms just exploding out of everywhere. And that was, was your account banned when you came on before, or was that right after or before that?
My account was banned for a few months before I came on. Yeah, I got banned January or February 2021. And so I had just been on my backup account, just hanging out over there with like no followers at all, just chilling. And you're like, hey, come on my show. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let's do this.
Yeah, let's bring you out. And but yeah, since Elon took over Twitter, it seems like you got your account back, and God, you've been growing.
It is wild. I don't know what happened. I don't know where it came from, but yeah, I'm like, I'm probably gonna hit 500,000 followers this summer, which is just mind blowing to me. It's mind blowing. I'm so humbled by the whole thing that many people care about what I have to say.
Well, you've always said great things. So you're somebody, and honestly, I've always looked at your content and what you've just provided forward, because you've never really created content. You've just speak on Twitter, and now you're doing a lot of Twitter spaces. But when you go on shows and stuff like that, like, the Constitution just about better than almost anybody I know. So I learned so much just from when you speak about that. So
I always have one nearby, actually, a pocket Constitution.
Oh yeah. I know. I'm like, I love the setup and you got going on there. So it's great. But what else do you got going on? Like, what have you been up to?
I work for Tim Pool now. I do outside media work. So he has me going on different shows and podcasts and talking on there and shouting out the show. If you're listening to this, go right over there and smash that subscribe button and help support our work. So yeah, I do work with him, which I love. Tim and I were friends before for years. So it's nice to be part of something so big in a cause such as that. Other than that, I'm just living the dream. I'm in Florida now instead of Massachusetts, which is wonderful. My kids are thriving. Family's great. It's perfect. Everything is perfect.
Yeah. That was a big move, because you did that. Was that last year or 2 years?
Yeah.
No, it was last year, right?
Yeah. I got to the point in Massachusetts where they're like trying to mandate the shots for the kids, and they're trying to trans everything. And I'm just like, we don't belong here anymore. This is not healthy or normal.
Yeah, I think I was down in Florida last year just as you were moving, so we didn't get to link up. But next
Yeah,
time
we missed.
I'm
Yeah,
down there, we're gonna hang out.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm about an hour and a half south of Orlando in Tampa, so that's a quick drive up for me, and I'm about 2.5, 3 hours north of Miami. So, I mean, I'm in
That's
no
awesome.
man's land, but I'm close enough to travel anywhere, to hang out anywhere, because we got to do like a beach day or something for sure.
Oh, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's so good. I'm so glad that you were able to come on, and actually you were supposed to come on last week, but like you heard my opening, I'm glad that we actually moved it before that,
It was a
because
sign, yeah.
it was a bad week.
I was crazy the last 3 weeks before that too. Like I traveled every single weekend. I was in Austin, I was in Miami, I was in Tampa. I was all over the place, and it's like I was going to take the weekend and just do nothing, and then I got called to Miami, so I had to go to Miami, and I was just like, all right, I just need a day, because I had been nonstop for over 3 weeks, just no days
Oh
off,
yeah.
and I need a break, or I felt myself getting burned out. Like if I went on your show, if you had it, like good thing you didn't, but it would have just been like, I just would have been like burnout. Like,
Zoned out. Yeah.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, that's actually, you mentioned something. You've been doing a lot of traveling, but I noticed that you were doing a lot of stuff for the Mises Caucus events and stuff like that, right? That's where you were at before
Yeah.
you went to Miami, right? So what is
Yes.
the Mises Caucus doing with these events?
So they're spreading awareness on what it is, what the libertarian movement is, and what the Mises Caucus does. It's more of like, I guess people would recognize it as like a right-leaning libertarian as opposed to a left-leaning libertarian, if you have to put it in those terms. It's pragmatic libertarianism, and they're training people on how to outreach to people who might not be listening. Like how to speak their language. They were doing outreach trainings, and then just letting libertarians speak about what it means to be a libertarian. And I was very lucky. I got to talk about the Constitution. I got to talk about the first Constitutional Convention, and that's where my passion is. And I brought a lot of that to the Libertarian Party when I first got involved. I would talk a lot about the Constitution, and because I realized how far a lot of, and I'm talking 2018, 2019, how far a lot of the libertarians got away from the Constitution and were more looking at like self-indulgence as opposed to property rights and things like that. So
Yeah.
it was kind of bridge it and branch it. And now I see a lot of people really respecting the Constitution and talking about it more, all of its important parts, Bill of Rights in particular.
Yeah, that was one thing I think that people started looking at was, I mean, there were so many that were just so focused on like ANCAP philosophy that they weren't actually looking at what's practical, in our current system. And I think if we can get back to the Constitution, then we can work from there. But it's good. I think that the outreach is really good. And a lot of people need to learn how to, I always say that we need to learn how to lobby, because like I was telling you before the show, I learned how to lobby this last year. I've been lobbying bills across the country. I have 3 bills in Louisiana. I passed one here in Georgia, and so it's something that we can do to, in common sense legislation, to shrink government, is to lobby our state and local governments.
Exactly. And the way forward with the libertarian movement is absolutely on a local and a state level. It's not on a federal level. Not yet. There's too much has to be undone to even get to that point, whether it's I think they need 15% in 3 different polls to even be able to debate, and that's just not going to happen. And that's all stuff that happened, when George Bush didn't win a second term. That's how far back this goes.
No, you're absolutely right. But all right, let's jump into our first story today. And actually, we're going to lead off with some good news here. So I don't know if you've seen this. Texas House actually became the next state in the union to, so the House moved forward a bill that would ban basically all child sex changes in the state. And I think the biggest story is one Democrat broke ranks and voted with it. And she actually said some really, common sense stuff when it came to it. Like she was like, we've always protected children. Why are we doing something? Why are we changing that now? And you've been kind of talking a lot about, like you said, trans issues quite a bit, especially in like your Twitter spaces and stuff, right? So, what do you think the path forward is on the issue?
The path forward on the issue in general is going to be states' rights. So states like Florida, my state, are banning sex changes for children, which is a very normal, moral. This is the way that's right. Like that is morally and factually the right thing to do, is to ban child sex changes. These children can't consent. They don't know about sex. They don't know about orgasms. They don't understand pregnancy, nothing like that they would understand as an adult, which would give them informed consent to have a sex change. They can't possibly grasp at 12 years old when they're having top surgeries at Boston Children's Hospital or elsewhere. So when it comes to transing children, the way forward would be just a federal ban of all of it. Like, this is disgusting and gross. However, that's not going to happen because of these trans refuge laws that some states are passing as a reactionary knee-jerk reaction to Florida. And that says your child, like my child, if she decided to, could run off to Minnesota or another one of these trans refuge states and have top surgery and get hormones and do all of this stuff, and they wouldn't extradite her. It's legalized trafficking, kidnapping, mutilization, and sterilization of children is what these are. So the way forward, pragmatically and logically, will be strong states' rights. We're going to start to see states, our 50 states, look like 50 sovereign countries with their own rules, their own leaders, their own agendas. And we're starting to see it now. But I mean, if you think 10 years ago when you went to visit Florida, you would go to visit because it's sunny and Disney World's there. But now you're going because the governor is not an authoritarian tyrant, So so we're going to see that. We're going to start to see a separation of that moving forward.
Yeah. And I mean, that was the Oregon bill, like when they were looking at the Oregon bill, like one of them was like talking about gender affirming care, and they're like, gender affirming care can happen as early as 8 years old and all this stuff. And you're like, hold on.
No. You know what else is interesting? What is interesting about these bills that they're passing, the one in Minnesota, for instance, it bans conversion therapy. So if a gay man went to a therapist and said, I don't think I'm gay, I don't know if I'm gay, they're not even allowed to. This is what Dr. Peterson had said. He said, if a gay man came to him and said, I don't think I'm gay, can you help me figure this out? He's not allowed to. Yeah. At all. That's how deep conversion therapy goes. It's not just giving you therapy to change your brain. But the fact of the matter is they banned it for adults. So it goes one way. So children, we can trans into the opposite sex or whatever sex they think they are. And adults can't go to a therapist and say, I don't think I'm gay, can you help me? They can't do it. So those things are banned. And they've also, in a lot of these refuge laws, wrapped in abortion to it as well. Like, oh, you can come here for, an abortion up to 34 weeks or whatever.
The Oregon bill did that. They were debating. That was the headline. Now that one was actually on abortion, because kids can come as young as 10 years old, is what they had said, can come to the state, get an abortion without their parental knowledge or consent of it even happening. So basically a crime has already been committed, and they're not even looking into the actual crime that was committed. And that is, the child rape, essentially. Yeah,
exactly. And that's the thing, because they want to shift the age of consent. That's what it's all going to go down to. And whether you want to look at that like, the global pedophile, whatever that everybody always talks about, but they want the age of consent shifted. So they're shifting what children can do with their bodies. And the limit of consent for a child is what is them reinforcing what cannot be done to their bodies. Like, no, I don't want to take drugs. No, I don't want to drink alcohol. It's not this consenting to be mutilated. It's not consenting to be permanently deformed as a child who does not have that informed consent. Liz, like I said before, they don't know about adult behaviors that they're going to need these parts for.
No, you're absolutely right. That's the problem. And actually, it is interesting. So Logic Rec says, it surprised me how many adults seem to ignore the fact that kids can't consent. And you're absolutely right. And that's the biggest issue is I always talk about, because we know Marcy Bowers is the president of the World Professional Association of Transgender Health. And she has said that a child who 100% of the times, children that are that she has come across her surgery desk to have, a vaginoplasty, if they were actually blocked at Tanner stage 2, they're never able to orgasm as an adult. So they're basically consenting to something that they should not, and they do not know what they are consenting to, because they have not and they should not ever experience that until adulthood, right? And so they're giving up something that they don't even know what it is.
Exactly. And you wonder about when they get old enough to understand what happened to them. And how many detransitioners there are. What was interesting, I believe it was Billboard Chris who shared the information. It's something like that. The center that they closed in, it's Tavistock.
The Tavistock Clinic, yeah.
Yes. So they closed that one down. However, the detransition rate at that clinic was something like 1% to 2%. Okay, because they managed to find a way to because there's a lot of false positives with transing kids. About a 20% false positive. And then like the studies that said about 88% will outgrow it or were just gay and didn't know until they were old enough to understand what it was. But there's about a 20% here. So there's a lot of false positives, and Tavistock was able to weed out the false positives, and only had this very minute detransition rate because of it, so it's and they closed anyway.
I don't even know about, I don't even know about that. So the detransition rate on any study that they've done is very small, any study they've done. But the problem is they're not studying it. And so the Tavistock probably has high detransition rates, but for one, if you never show back up at the clinic, they never mark you as a detransition.
That's a good point.
It's a self-report.
They could want to just disassociate entirely from that clinic and never go back there because they were mutilated and they don't trust them. So that's a really good point. I just assumed that they figured out some sort of magic spell. I know that there were some things that they did do different. I can't remember off the top of my head what they were, but Chris had outlined them, and how they counseled, and how they and how long they waited, things like that, or a little bit different.
Yeah, their wait time was a little bit longer there, but that was more of a, I think that was more of a socialized medicine issue, that there were so many new patients coming in that they couldn't handle the patient load.
Is great.
Yeah,
No waste
exactly.
at all.
It's like, so you wait a year because the socialized medicine aspect of it, and so really what was happening is a lot of these patients that were not really trans were taking away the care from the actual people that had genuine gender dysphoria. And so it's really a conundrum there as well. Like, what do you do? But it is interesting, going back to what you said about conversion therapy, because conversion therapy in and of itself is wrong, the old definition of it. But you're right, they're not really defining what conversion therapy is. And so it's kind of like, what is conversion therapy? What is an assault rifle? What is a woman? Like, the left can't answer any of those things without using circular definitions. And so when they put these bans out on hate speech,
yes, they want to be able to fit anything into that definition that they want, so they keep it as vague as they can. Oh no, that we're going to include this, we're going to include that, and that's what they do.
Same with hate speech laws. Hate speech laws. What is hate speech? Like, you can ask them this stuff, and it's like they're so vague that they can be like, no, that's covered. And so you're right that even if the law doesn't ban it for therapists are so worried about that it does, that they can't even push back on if you're trans, you're trans, like that's what it has to be. And so I actually think the biggest thing with this is the lawsuits, like Chloe Cole's lawsuit and a lot of the detransitioner lawsuits are going to be in blue states, are going to be the best way to go forward, because what those will do is de-incentivize the transition process. It de-incentivizes doctors from pushing this onto their patients, because they're going to get sued now.
Yep. I like that. That's how it should be, like consequence, accountability. Absolutely.
I mean, and that's again, that's the free market at work. Like you know that's what's going to happen. The free market is what's going to change it in the blue states, in my opinion, and that's what lawsuits do.
And it's interesting with the bills too, because it's like you can convert your body, but you can't convert your mind. You know, like just the way that they're written, and it's just and they're written like that on purpose. You know, but it's
no, you're right. You are right. Have you seen this though? This came up on the 7th. Let me see. This doctor, I don't necessarily want to play it all, but it basically says, parents are in the way of doctors selecting the right puberty, and that's kind of it. That he doesn't outright say it, but it kind of goes with that.
And I just really want people to understand a little bit more about that. You know, I think a lot of parents get scared when they're, kind of might disclose something, and, looking at this bill, it's like they're so scared that they might be hiding something from them, maybe for good reason, but they're trying to codify it into law. And so we know that they're early bloomers, they're late bloomers naturally. And this is a really well thought out process that we work on in our team. And when we need to be able to have adequate time to assess and address the child's gender identity and experience, and work with them and their families, even families who are having problems. And the goal of that is to make sure that this kiddo goes through the right puberty. And so puberty suppressants, even though not many people get the chance to use them, really allow us the time that we need to induce a late blooming puberty, where we can work together as family with mental health providers, with endocrinologists, and an interdisciplinary team to figure out what's going to put that child on the best trajectory for their life going forward. Because the repercussions of going through the wrong puberty are pretty awful, and unnecessary medical risks associated with major gender affirming surgeries in the future. It's like bilateral mastectomy. If you're forcing people to delay puberty, or you're forcing pubertal development that could be the wrong pubertal development, they may have to have major surgeries. It could also be unwanted and difficult or impossible. Some of these developments being done, like skeletal structure, your hands, how broad your shoulders are. Even the best surgeon couldn't necessarily help fix that. We also have things like voice pitch. So
it's insane to me that he doesn't see that, like, exactly what he's saying is the reason why we shouldn't be doing this, right? Yes. There's no such thing as the wrong puberty. And 2, when you're talking about like the harms of medicalizing, like patients, like Mia Ashton had the piece that we highlighted on here a couple weeks ago, where the person died. The person yes. died in 2016 because they didn't have enough tissue, so they grafted from the colon, and then that caused an infection.
Caused the flesh-eating bacteria. Can you imagine a flesh-eating bacteria from your vagina going up? No, like this is awful. This is disgusting. And the reason that this happened is because he was given puberty blockers at such a young age that his penis, which I guess you're supposed to invert. I didn't really dig too much into the surgery, but it was a micro penis because they gave him puberty blockers too young.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah,
so and it was part of the Dutch. It was part of the Dutch study that caused it, and it was only because of that. Because if you're actually able to grow up and go through normal puberty, it's a much less risky surgery. And so it's really, he's not even like, they're not even looking at what the issues are of going through quote unquote the right puberty for your sex. Like you can't just start a late bloomer puberty at the age of 16 and think that you're going to just grow naturally. You're never going to be natural. Right. No, and so that's what
from bone density is affected in this. And then study after study, children have weak bones. They're getting osteoporosis when they're 20 years old.
Yeah.
Then they did a study in sheep, and now they're just starting to kind of look at people after doing the sheep, while doing everything at the same time, because everything is crazy and stupid right now. The sheep have brain damage from starting puberty blockers too young. Brain damage in sheep, so probably
Maybe.
Probably going to
Yeah.
be brain damage in children who go through these too. I mean, the puberty blockers were designed for like precocious puberty in young girls, because some girls were getting their periods at 6 years old, and that's also not healthy. So they were given very small doses of the hormones to level them back out again. Anything like this with massive doses of puberty blockers to stop puberty from in a typically maturing child, that's not been studied. So we're going to find out terrible things that happen to our children in 10 years. And those are the ones like the Chloe Coles who are going to be suing. Yep. Thank God. I always say that there's no such thing as a trans child, only Munchausen's by proxy, because when some of these children, and right now it's like a rite of passage. It's a rite of passage in the same way being a goth or a skater or, anything like that. It's like there's, survey was done. Absolutely. Survey was done on parents, and they were interviewing parents of children who suddenly became trans, right? Because that was the thing. It's like the suddenly became trans. And so they interviewed these parents, and it's something like 86% of them all had been spending more time with a trans friend group or on a trans social media site. So there was a lot of influence coming there.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm glad and I bet you're really glad you're in Florida now, because your daughter is a tomboy, right? And so they would be trying to transition your child if you were still in Massachusetts.
Oh yeah, my daughter was targeted hard up in Massachusetts, either being non-binary or lesbian were the two things they were trying to push on her up there. I moved down here within 3 months. She still plays sports, still excellent at them, but I did up her room in pink last year. She's very well-adjusted young lady, and she told me that she felt like she could not be herself because there was a point when we were still in Massachusetts where she felt like she was straying away from tomboy, but they've made tomboy a gender. Tomboy's on the list of the 72 genders.
Oh, Jesus.
So she was being kind of like, she's like, I felt like I had to be a tomboy. Like I felt like I had to stay there because that's what they expected of me. And she came down here, and within 3 months, she was this totally like new person. She's herself. She's blossomed, and it was just going to be nothing but holding her back up there.
It's amazing how much I hear that too. So we did an event. It was me, Chloe, Jeanette from Partners for Ethical Care, and a couple other people on this panel in Wisconsin back in January. And I've heard now 2 stories from that panel where one happened that night. That dad brought his daughter, they left, and the daughter said, "You know what, Dad, the speakers were right. I'm gonna wait." And then I got another message a couple weeks ago where the young girl is doing so good since that event, since now they understand. Ooh. But they're doing so good, and recently went up and gave their mom a hug and said thank you for taking her. And so it's like those types of things. It's like if you can just break their mindset out of this cult, then you'll see changes in a lot of these kids, because we know 88% grow up and grow out of it by the age of 20, and that's really it.
Yeah. Sarah, you're changing lives doing the work that you're doing. And I hope you know how grateful I am for people like you, and how thankful I am for the work that you do. Like it's it's incredible. And I think that trans men and trans women, men and women being the operative word, you're adults, you've been through it, and your voice matters most to these children, because that's going to be their future, you know?
Yeah, and I think so. That's why, like, when me and Chloe, we've been doing a lot. We've got more events coming up here this year, and that's what I think that helps a lot too. You have me on one end and Chloe on the stage at the same time, saying the same things and really pushing it, that this isn't a trans versus detrans or trans issue in and of itself. We shouldn't be transitioning our children. As an adult, you have the right to do with your body as you please, but children are sacred. And that's what the Texas Democrat that stepped away had said. She said, children are sacred and we protect them.
Yes, we've always protected them, and this is new what they're doing to not protect them.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But all right, we'll shift gears. We're going to go into a hard transition into. Did you see this speech to Howard University, a traditional Black university?
I saw the
president.
Clip.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so for everybody out there that hasn't seen this.
To stand up against the poison of white supremacy, as I did my inaugural address, to single out as the most dangerous terrorist threat to our homeland is white supremacy. And I'm not saying this because I'm at a Black HBCU. I say it wherever I go.
No, you're not, right? I mean, that's he gave away the trick right there at the end.
Yeah, I don't think he was supposed to say that part out loud.
No, probably not, because yeah, he shouldn't have said that, because it's the way that they do it all the time, is they always, wherever they go, will say what they want their audience to hear. Now, did you read any of the rest of that speech though? Like, the whole speech was race riddled. Like, it was all about, racism and, the audience being Black. And I can only think of, like, if I'm in that audience, it feels like somebody's pandering if the only thing that they're talking about is, this, characteristic that I was born with.
I know, but you heard everybody applaud, because I'm guessing at a historically Black college, they're going to be pumping out people who believe that and have no basis for challenging it. Like, they're not going to be taught to challenge that thought. They're going to be taught, okay, you're victims. The president's coming here to reinforce that you're victims. And this is your life. This is what you are. It's not who you are. Yeah.
Now, it's really interesting because I think that there was a lot of lies. I mean, the president lies about, like, his history all the time. And so, like, he claimed that the assassination of Martin Luther King and then the riots that followed were the reason he became a public defender.
Wow.
I don't think that's true. Then you went to, like, sign the 94 crime bill.
Yeah, the 94 crime bill. Any way that he spoke in the 70s and 80s, like, he's always been a racist old man, like, even when he was a young man. That's not the truth at all. But one of the tenets of communism is rewriting your story. So that's why we see Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and they're able to just, Kamala saying that she celebrated Kwanzaa as a young child before it was, like, even invented. And they're able to do that because communism says your history is just a story. You can rewrite that and retell that however you want. So then we have the 1619 project coming in and making shit up, and we have the president and the vice president of the United States just making shit up, and that nothing. It's to destabilize you from understanding what is real and what is not real, and that'll get you into communism.
Well, and that's the postmodern aspect of CRT. It's that's, so when they say that CRT is only teaching history, it's that it's teaching their history. Not really the history, but it's their history that you're trying to erase.
Yeah. And it's like, no, that there's no evidence that any of this happened. You have no, the history that we teach is the history that America teaches, 1776 history. That's all taken from letters, like documents. And it's not all pretty. It's not all pretty. Like the way that the Constitution was or the Declaration of Independence was written, it's got a racial slur in there. Like, not everything about our history is pretty, but it's all factual because it's all written down. Like, we know what happened at the first Constitutional Convention because James Madison took neurotic notes. He wrote
Yeah.
everything down, and that's the only reason we know anything, because they all swore to secrecy not to say anything about it.
Yeah, that's what's it's amazing that we know so much about that, and we know well then the Federalist Papers and the Anti-Federalist Papers and all of that.
And
So we
Thomas
know what
Jefferson
the conflicts were.
Exactly. And Thomas Jefferson has something like 15,000 letters that he wrote, all on display at the Library of Congress. Like, we know everything because they wrote it down. We're not just
Yeah.
making things up. And it wasn't all pretty stuff that they wrote down, but we know it all because they wrote it down.
Well, we know even when it's on video that they will still lie.
Yes. Exactly.
I mean, or when you wrote a bill, like I said, the 94 crime bill, or when he talks about LGBT issues and he signed, Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and sponsored like these other bills, and it's like, or the Defense of Marriage Act,
And that's what the iron law of woke projection on top of it, because they're always telling us, no, your history is just a story. We're just countering your story. It's like, our story has evidence.
Yeah.
We wrote our story down.
Yeah, it's interesting because in this, he also said that it was the Charlottesville quote from Donald Trump that made him want to get back into public life. And he said, I'm not even joking. So, he's making it up. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When he has to reiterate how much he's not joking, or listen, man.
Yeah, man, listen. What I really thought, and he projected so much in this speech too, because he even said about hate. He said it never really goes away. He said it basically it can never go away, and so racism can never go away. And so again, that's like them basically saying
security.
we're gonna perpetuate this stereotype and make sure that it never goes away. That's why you see like the feds out there with the Patriot Front. So
absolutely. And that's the thing, because what Thomas Massey had said when they had the troops all sleeping in parking garages, and he said it's they have to keep up appearances, because a picture is gonna stay with you longer than a quote. So that's why they do these photo ops with the Patriot. We never heard about why they were there, what they did. It's just, the feds are marching down the street again. We all know they're feds, but they're going to see the picture, and your grandmother's going to see the picture, and she's going to say, oh, those people are on the right, because that's what she's told to think. And she doesn't know any better to question it. And there you go. That's going to perpetuate it further, But what he said is the reason they're so hell-bent on taking pictures is because that's going to stay with you. They need you to have the feeling of this ever-present threat that you can't see. Only in some pictures you can see it, but that's just going to tell you it's always there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And what is it? 7 times? It takes 7 times seeing something to believe it's the truth. Like it takes 7. It's like the 7 lies or something like that.
Yeah, and if you look at how much they added since the NDAA of 2012 that abolished the Smith-Mundt Act and replaced it with the Modernization Act, which allowed propaganda back into our country. That was 2012 when that happened. So 2013, propaganda started coming back into our country. And if you look at the flow of the propaganda, like they have these charts, like how much racism was mentioned, and it's like, and then you get to 2013, it shoots up the graph.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it was all the race baiters were losing their jobs because and really, it's interesting because you see a lot more minorities moving over to the right because they're realizing how much of a, how they're just making them to be victims when it's like, wait a second, you guys are the one that are perpetuating this stuff. And and I don't know, I wrote an op-ed about how the communists, they're trying to do it with, or the neo-Marxists are trying to do it with queer theory. What they tried to do, they tried it with CRT, but the problem was they had to get Black people to go along with, executing the violence and executing the narrative and believing the narrative. Whereas when it comes to the trans issue and queer theory, all they actually have to do is self-identify into the category and then destroy the name, and then they can just self-ID out of the category when they've destroyed everything.
Yeah, that's impressive, and that's a really good connection you made there.
Yeah.
They're able to be gender fluid, you know.
Oh yeah, gender fluid. You could just like self ID in, self ID out. When you look, but I started noticing it when you look at like the violence. I mean, I was in your space, I think, when I called it Trantifa, because that's what it is. All of Antifa self-identifies, and when you start to see like what's happening on the ground, you realize, like, when you watch the videos, you're like, wait a second, half these people aren't trans. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, all these allies are out here.
Exactly. Or what they're doing, what I was seeing that they were doing starting from a younger age, is the children were identifying as bisexual and pansexual, right? But then all of these children, they'd go off and they'd have sexually appropriate partners. They'd, you know, a girl would say, oh, I'm bi, would have boyfriends. And a boy would say, oh, I'm pansexual, would have girlfriends. They could say they were these things and then live their lives normally, because the normal or the sexually appropriate partner was, it was included, and it was included in bi and pan. So
that happens so much. And actually, I was talking to Ariel Scarcella about this too, because that used to be a thing. It used to be like girls would say that they were bi to be cool. Like back in, you know, it would be the cool thing to say that you were bi, because then you were part of the community, but they were not really bi. And then basically what that did was it perpetuated, like it invalidated real bisexuals. And so this is just,
it invalidates real bisexuals.
Another step in the way, because real transsexuals. But so from what the president calls the biggest terror threat to our country, let's move to probably the actual biggest terror threat to our country. Let me see.
The FBI. Yeah.
There we go. Oh, well, that would be, but this week, after Title 42, an Afghan man on the terror watch list crossed over the border illegally with a bunch of migrants.
Oh, we're crossing
caught
over
by
now.
the FBI.
We're doing a 2001 crossover event with 2023. This is exciting.
It is. It's what's interesting is, remember, that's always been the biggest concern, that radical Islamic terrorists were crossing the borders with illegal migrants. That's been one of the biggest concerns that we've had, even from my neocon days of the early 2000s. Like you said.
Yeah.
And now it's happening.
I remember.
Like, there was all the rumors back then that Al Qaeda had a camp set up in Juarez and all this stuff. And now, because there's so many people coming across their border, and the rules are so relaxed, they are actually coming across the border.
Yes.
But yeah, and this comes as Title 42 is getting ready to expire. Now, Josie, I don't know, where are you at, like, with border security, and like with because the libertarian line is very different from one side to the other. There is the open borders crowd that believe that you should just be able to cross anytime you want, and then there's the people that you should think that you should be able to secure your own borders of the country. And I think I saw your tweet the other day, and I just remembered that. But I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, it's a lot of people, but this is like I said, I'm a constitutional, a Bill of Rights libertarian, and Article 4, Section 4. It's the federal government's job to protect the states from invasion.
Yeah.
And when Article 42 expired, like they sent the military down there to do what? Protect the states from invasion. So that's the rule, because borders are an extension of property rights. So we pay taxes on public land, and we own private land all along the border, and it's property rights, and that's libertarian. The idea that you can go freely, like, oh, you can't stop somebody's movement, right? That's the libertarian, the left libertarian perspective. You can't in the United States. You can't if you're protected within the states, but not when you're not protected by the Constitution when you're not within these United States. If you're in Mexico, you're not protected by the U.S. Constitution. So no, you can't travel from Mexico into the U.S. and be protected by their Constitution. Also, why do we have locks on our doors? If I can freely go anywhere I want, because that's like it's tyranny to block me from going into your house, Sarah. It's tyranny.
Oh yeah.
So
like you said, it's private property.
You're not. Yeah. Oh yeah. Private property. So that's okay. So yeah, exactly. So public land is the private property of the United States citizens, essentially.
Yeah.
The public parks. That's our communal land.
Yeah.
And I mean, even like if you wanted to go into like a native reservation, like there's certain rules that you have to buy. Like so that's the way that works. That's the truth of the matter. You can't just freely cross into our country, especially given that we pay the taxes, and I don't think libertarians, their taxes are very libertarian, but right now you can't have both. So I think it was it Rothbard who said that? I can't remember. It was one of the libertarian scholars said, okay, you can have a welfare state or open borders, but you can't have both. And that's the truth too.
Well, one thing about that is I do know that the immigrants actually pay for the welfare of the immigrants that are coming and actually getting on welfare. So they do actually pay. It does actually pay for itself. But I'm with you on, and I've had the left libertarians hate me on this one too, because I think a border wall is fine. I mean, I'm a minarchist libertarian. I believe that the sole focus of the U.S. military should be to protect our borders, period. And so, like you said, I have no issues with border walls. I have no issues with protecting our border, but I'm more in favor of like an Ellis Island style immigration system where you get a background check at the border and you should be let in freely. And then you can focus your resources, all your military and your border patrol, on people like like the cartels and this Afghan national that came in, because only bad people would be trying to cross illegally. So that's where I'm at with the border stuff too. That's technically could be considered open border, but it's not like this open border where you should just be able to go to your neighbor's house across the other side of the border.
Exactly. And I'm on the same page saying there should be a very easy path to immigration. Very easy path. And actually Elon Musk was like, yeah, me too. So we're both on the same page with that. So my idea is that, if you don't have a felony, if you're not a criminal, if you're not trafficking children and you have a job, and it's like, okay, what can you provide for the country? Like, okay, I'm a benefits for the first 2 years.
Yeah.
Very easy, like no crimes, you have a job, you can't get benefits.
Yeah. Seems, I mean, it's reasonable to think that, because then, I mean, that would eliminate, like I said, I think that you could, as a military person, somebody who served in the military, I'm like, I look at it though, and I see like, you focus your resources where they matter. And so if you're not focused on all these hundreds and thousands of immigrants coming in, then you can actually focus on the bad people. And I mean, ending, the war on drugs would help too, but that's a whole nother conversation.
What's worrisome as well is 1/3 of the children who get to the border are not there with a custodial parent. They're there with an adult.
And they are let in freely.
Because they're there with an adult who's not there. Yeah. They're trafficked to the border, and they're there with an adult who knows what they're there for, whether they're there just as a coyote, or if they're there to harm the child or hand the child off to somebody who's going to harm them. We don't know. But 1/3 of children who show up to the border aren't there with the person who's their parent. They're there with somebody who's pretending to be their parent. That's scary.
That is very scary. And I know we've seen a huge influx at the border since, Title 42 was set to expire. But here is the good old vice president who was, to set this up too, Kamala Harris is supposed to be the border czar. She is supposed to handle everything that has to do with the border, even though
she's never been there.
Yeah. And so here's what she had to say about what's going on.
I hear that everything in the last couple of days is going rather smoothly, given what the concerns were. And the bottom line, however, is that the issue of immigration falls squarely within the responsibility of the United States Congress. You know, I hear that everything in the last couple of days.
So, so one, I hear everything's going swimmingly, but yet an Afghan, terrorist came across the border. That's going smoothly, I guess. And then shucking the responsibility off to the Congress.
Why do we have a border czar? Why do we have a border czar if it all belongs to Congress? You know?
Yeah. Like
what are you doing, Kamala?
What have you been doing the last 2 years? I mean, well, we know what she's been doing, but nothing.
Literally,
she's not been doing her job.
Oh no, they only bring her out every now and then when they think she'll say something smart and she says something stupid. So it's just clips of her being dumb.
Well, it's clips. I mean, she is the real life Veep. I mean, have you seen like the clips of her talking in circles, and then you put it next to the actual like the show Veep, and it's like where she was talking like, and it was like, wait a second, why are you're not saying anything, but you're saying something.
Taking a long time to say nothing there, Kamala. Yeah.
And she does it all the time. And then remember, it was like, I mean, because they gave so many mixed statements early on too. Like it was, we're going to let you in, but don't come. We're going to let you in, but don't come.
Don't come. Don't come. Mm-hmm.
I love the mashup with Trump saying, I'm going to come.
Yeah, me too. That's awesome.
All right. But yeah, I mean, the border is such a crazy issue that we're on to the last segment where this is, I still need a name for this segment. It's kind of the segment where it's just kind of to get a laugh. Okay, because everything else is so crazy, and this one features your boss. So,
yay, Tim!
So this was the Surfs were on the Surf.
Yes,
his name? It was on last week.
Lance.
And so yeah, Lance was on, and
Lance
so
went on to block all of us.
I just saw that I was blocked today. When I pulled this up, I was like, wait a second, I'm blocked. What?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So. But here it is for the audience.
Oh, God. The after hours show is wild.
If you suck a trans woman's penis, is that gay?
It's not. No, you're sucking a woman's penis.
Stop.
No,
That's
gay. I know.
Stop.
I'm blowing minds.
No.
Oh,
I mean, even Ian's like, no, that's gay.
No. Even Ian, I know.
But it is. I mean, come on now. Like, let's talk about it. It's like, we can be as trans friendly as we want. I'm a trans person, and it's like the act is homosexual. It's a homosexual act. It doesn't matter if the penis belongs to a trans woman or a man. It's a homosexual act.
Yes, it's a male organ, and that's the thing is they were like, oh no, we're not going to ever conflate gender with sex. We're never going to do that, and that was the slippery slope. And that was probably just like 4 or 5 years ago they were saying that, and now it's like no. That is a biological male sex organ. And if a male sucks on the biological male sex organ, that is gay. It's gay.
It's gay.
And that's okay. It's okay. It's gay,
yes,
but
being
it's
gay
okay.
is fine.
No one's judging. We're just speaking in reality here.
Yeah.
It's gay to suck a male's penis. If you are a male.
Listen, I'm bisexual, so I'm good with this. Okay. But it's gay. It's a homosexual act. It is very much homosexual. Now, I've also been somebody who would say, like, I've even looked at some of the nuance of this, though, right? Like
a girl's penis. Sorry.
Oh my God. I've not said that. No. It's not a girl's penis. No, it's not. Which actually, talking about what I was telling you before the show. So, the Lou Perez skit. They talk about the female penis. And it's hilarious. You have to go watch it. In the audience, if you don't know, Lou Perez did a skit with Free the People, and it's called Misgendering a Murder. It's in a comedy series that Lou's doing called I think it's Comedy is Murder. And it is funny though. No, I've talked though about, I think there can be some nuance when it comes to sexuality. Like if you're a man and you date trans women and women, it doesn't necessarily make you gay or bi.
Unless you're
But
sucking their dick.
but that's exactly what I was gonna say. That's
the nuance. Mm-hmm.
That's the nuance. And because
Yeah.
you can be attracted to the female form,
Mm-hmm.
and technically, I mean, and I think Blair White said it best. She's like, it may not be like a Kinsey zero, but it's also not like straight is the best thing to, probably the best thing to call it, because you like the female form and that's all you
Mhm.
date. But again,
Yeah.
the act of sucking a trans woman, like any penis, is
Yes.
homosexual.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. It is gay.
Well, I think that's where we leave off right now, because we go till 8, because actually I started the show at 7 because I didn't want to run into Timcast because they would just take all my viewers.
Yeah.
So Josie, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for coming on, having sharing your insight and having a good time.
This was a really fun show. Thank you for having me on. It was very important things that we talked about today. And at the end of the show, absolute just excellence.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Where can everybody go find you?
You can find me on Twitter at TRHL official. And that's really where I hang out. And also, like I said at the beginning, head over onto Timcast, smash the subscribe button, and help support our work over there.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. And speaking of Lou Perez, I am going to be on his show tomorrow night. And so go check that out. I'm also, I mean, tomorrow is Comedy Tuesday. I'm going to be on with Danny Polishuk with Low Value Mail right after the Lou Perez show. So go watch both of those. And then I have Matt Ray scheduled to come on Thursday night for a special interview as well. So we are busy this week. I will probably have a special video that I filmed with Shapeshifter 2 weeks ago come out this week. So lots of good collabs this week. And click that like and subscribe button over here, and then jump over to Tim and smash that like button. So again,
Perfect.
Join me, follow me across all social medias. Make sure you go follow Josie, and we will see y'all next time.